Hey, welcome, agents. We are back in the virtual MASKast studios here in, Maryland and then Alabama way down yonder. How are you faring with all the hurricanes that have been trying to work its way through you?
Oh, it hasn't been too bad. We haven't really got the brunt of it. Got some rain with the last one, but nothing too major. A little bit of flash flooding, but yeah, hurricane season. It's always fun.
You got another one potentially brewing down there.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed. The worst of it's down in Florida, where my in-laws are, and still recovering from. Which one was it? Michael?
I don't know which one was first.
The one that came through Panama City like 2 years ago.
Oh.
Or was it 2 years ago? Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. That was really bad. We went down for Christmas that year and saw the damage, and it was really unbelievable. But yeah, they're all right though, and hopefully everybody down there in the Gulf Shores and all that is doing okay. How you doing, man?
Well, we're in the construction mode. Since we're adding on to the family, it only seemed logical to really add on to the house because it's growing and the house ain't. So we got to do something.
That's right. That's right.
So we got basement walls are up now. I have to literally climb a mountain to get to my sheds. The truck is buried in, literally. So yeah.
Well, glad you guys are doing okay.
Yeah, we've been doing
expanding
well.
is good. I could use some around here. We're running out of room, but I don't know. Maybe that'll change in the future here. Trying to get this thing listed and get a bigger house.
Yeah.
And I can get my own studio like you have.
Well, my studio right now is a 2x2 closet. Freaking.
I don't even have a closet, man. I don't.
That's true. You don't. You have the laundry room right there in the bedroom there.
Or the back porch. I do a lot on the back porch on the Rediscover the 80s channel. But anyway, it's good to be here. Good to have the people here. Good to be doing MASKast again. And we've got this one and one more for our wrap up for this, what we're call season of MASKast. Once we get up through episode 60, and then 5 more, and then the whole racing series, and we'll be done, man.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
Be exciting, but I really like what Bill Ferris has done with his Behind the Mask, and now he's teamed up with was it Kerouac?
Mm-hmm.
And they've been doing their own episodes, just debating and talking, and I've been sucked into a few of them.
Yeah, I have as well.
Just the topics that he comes up with. I don't know how he does it. Just Bill himself, I don't know how he does it and can still talk about Mask. And it's like, didn't know about that, or geez, I didn't know you could dig that deep into a freaking toy. Geez.
Yeah, he is dug the deepest as you can, and it seems to be even getting a little more deeper.
Yeah,
lately. A couple things that we'll get to in the Get Your Mask On segment tonight, but yeah, I'm not sure if you even saw a couple of these about the movie, supposedly the movie.
Yep.
And actually some Transformers vehicles that are coming up that are supposedly inspired by Mask vehicles. And this whole Retrofied magazine dug up some really good stuff from a couple guys from Kenner that it just nobody had ever seen before, I don't think. So anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit. But are you ready to get on with the podcast?
I'm ready to start the MASKast.
All right. Well, I'll get us rolling here. We're going to be talking about the Scarlet Empress, episode 59 tonight. And here we go. Episode 75. Episode 75 of MASKast is here, featuring another episode review of the Mobile Armored Strike Command animated series from 1985. Coming up, we will examine episode 59, The Scarlet Empress, which will include our play-by-play commentary mixed in with audio clips from the actual episode, thanks to me. When we reach the dramatic halfway point and the conclusion of the episode, we will pause to give our impressions and our verdict using our 1 to 5 scale MASK-O-meter. Then we will turn it over to you, the listener, and announce the results of our online poll. Also read back your reviews posted at agentsofmask.com. If you want to contribute, it's pretty easy. Just head on over to our website, agentsofmask.com, and look for the MASKast assignment in the right-hand column there. Click on the picture, and that usually takes you right to the review post and the embedded video and the poll for you to take part in and leave your comments. The Scarlet Empress was originally broadcast on December 19th, 1985 in the United States, and involves V.E.N.O.M stealing a lost statue in Venezuela. It's up to M.A.S.K to recover the statue before V.E.N.O M can cash in. I'm Jason, one of your hosts of MASKast, and with me, as always and forever, is my lifelong and longtime friend and fellow co-host, the Super Sphere to my liquid man, Wyatt. How's your basketball skills?
Terrible. Again, you keep digging them, and I have no idea what this is in reference to.
Super Sphere and Liquid Man were the alter egos of the Super Globetrotters. Do you remember the Globetrotters cartoon?
I remember of it. That's as far as I remember. I don't think I've ever watched that cartoon.
I have faint memories of it. There's actually a really faint memory I have of going to Hershey Park when I was little, and it was just me and Mom and Dad. We were staying at a hotel room. We stayed overnight and then to go to the park the next day. And I remember waking up Globetrotters cartoon, essentially probably in reruns, because I don't think it was 1979, which is when it originally aired. I would have been only 3 years old. That's pretty fleeting. Right. I'm pretty sure I was like, 6 or 7 or 8, somewhere in there. But yeah, very short-lived cartoon, 13 episodes in 1979. And it was basically the Globetrotters, and they had these special, like, magical footlockers that they would jump into, and then that would turn them into the superhero that had, like, special powers. They were part, is actually, it was the Godzilla and Globetrotters Adventure Hour. They were nice. A part of, which ran through 1980. Made by Hanna-Barbera, and some familiar voices. None of the actual Globetrotters voiced their characters, which is pretty commonplace with things like that. Except, I guess, you think about Mr. T, or even when we talked about Wolfman Jack, he did his own voice. But like when they did Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, none of the wrestlers did their voices. They had somebody else do that. But the one of the main ones, Nate Branch, who was Liquid Man, was voiced by Scatman Crothers, and he was the guy that did the voice of Jazz on Transformers, if you can get that kind of pictured in your head. He was also the voice of Hong Kong Phooey. Scatman Crothers.
Nice.
Let me see if there's any other ones in here of the kind of main characters that we would know. Probably not until you get to, there was a little globe. It was called the Crime Globe that would, it's like a little basketball shaped satellite that would alert the Globetrotters. That was voiced by Frank Welker.
Oh, nice.
So that's one name that we can throw out there. And he did a couple other voices throughout the show, supporting characters and such. But yeah, I have not watched an episode. I don't know. It might be since that memory that I have. Yeah, just a really short-lived show. No, it was released to DVD, but wasn't really much supporting. Wasn't any like action figures or comics or anything to kind of go beyond what the cartoon was on Saturday morning. So anyway, yeah, they're a little Globetrotters talk. How about that?
There you go.
All right. Well, let's move on with the show. Let's get our mask on. And I'm going to get this one out of the way because I'm so sick of hearing movie rumors that I'm just whatever now. But the latest rumor was that they've got Ryan Reynolds, who is Deadpool, who played Green Lantern in that movie. They want him as Matt Tracker, which would be a pretty mega star nowadays to
Right.
pull off as your lead character. And I'm definitely not opposed to that. It doesn't really look the part, I would say, but yeah, I don't know. Did you see that headline?
I did, and I was kind of split because I'm partly excited that at least they're. It seems like they're moving ahead with something because they're throwing out that idea.
Mm-hmm.
The same with the. I know you're going to get to it, but the mask inspired Transformers that are coming out too. But there's that hesitancy. I think it's because I've been around you too long. That is it really going to come out, or are they just pulling a fast one and then nothing's going to happen?
Well, I didn't put too much stake into that story just because it was some website that I had never heard of before. And, usually when like stuff from the Hollywood Reporter, when that stuff comes out, that I would put more stake behind that, I guess you would say, than just some no-name website that quotes somebody that might have been related to somebody who had worked on the project at one time. And anyway, those kind of sites that are not one of the bigger names that throw rumors out there, I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll wait for the official announcement. But it's we've talked about before when we all got together on Bill's show on Behind the Mask and had that little round table talking about the movie. You can get our opinions there, but I'm pretty much to the point where I don't think it's going to happen unless I'm in a theater watching the movie.
Right.
We've just been going down that road so many years,
Very
and
true.
it's this and that, and it just seems like Hasbro likes to throw crap on a wall and see what sticks. Anyway, so that was a news headline I passed along. This was interesting. So, Mask-inspired Transformers, supposedly inspired. They're called Transformers Micron Micromasters Pack. It's like a series of. Let me see here. How many's in here? Trying to see if they threw an image out. I got this from Toy News International, but I guess there's just two vehicles in the set. So they have a picture. It's a light blue 57 Chevy and also an orange, I think, Dodge Challenger in the set that transform. And supposedly they're a take on Hurricane and Stinger. And I can see that. I mean, obviously the 57 Chevy, it's got the flames on it. And I don't see it in its transformed mode. I just see it in his car mode. It looks pretty close. The Challenger is a little bit of a stretch. Obviously, they don't make Pontiac anymore. And that was a GTO. But it's got the, big hood scoop and the hot rod engine sticking out like Stinger does and the side pipes. Spoiler in the back. So it's got some of the kind of, let me see if I can do my share screen here while I'm talking about it. That way you can see too, Wyatt. Here we go. How about that? Does it come through?
Still waiting. It's dark. There it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So that's the image there of the cars.
Yeah.
Side by side. So, it's cool that if they think this is that's a wonderful image over here. Let me just stop stop sharing,
please.
Borat. Dear God. Anyway. Wow.
Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah. Borat has a sequel. It's on Amazon Prime now, so that's why we're getting that. But anyway, uh, yeah, I mean, give me some cars. That's just strange to me, the choices there. The one they do like Thunderhawk or something else there instead of Stinger. But, if that's what they want to do, let them do it. I'm not going to be picking those up. They're not close enough. I want them, if you're going to label them as M.A.S.K Transformers or something, then maybe, but just too fleeting of a image there. But one final thing and get your mask on was I wanted to mention Retrofied magazine. Wyatt, I'm not sure if you had a chance to check them out yet. I think you can just go to, is it retrofied.com? We'll find out here in just a minute.
I'd seen the headline. I haven't had a chance to actually look at it.
No. Bear with me. It's retrofiedmag.com. Retro, FIEDMAG.com. The preview issue is for free. You can go download it now. And there is it's all like they have a theme for each issue, or they will moving forward. And this one is all about masks. And so they did a feature on like the Ben Cooper costume, from back in the day, all those plastic costumes. And they also did a feature on M.A.S.K and interviewed, it's pretty much an oral history, interviewed guys from the show like Doug Stone and Sharon Noble. I think there's small interviews in there. There's a couple guys that worked at Kenner. There's the guys from IDW. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else in there, but basically it's just taking you through the history of the franchise and what's been happening in the last several years and things. But really caught my eye was some of the images of like the prototype toys. There was one for Slingshot in there. There was one for this little wrist toy. It was like a watch. Mm-hmm. And you could put one of the M.A.S.K figures in there and I think like launch them out or something. Like it was a vehicle itself or something. Looked pretty cool. But yeah, you could read all about it, retrofiedmag.com. And what you can do is just support them on Patreon. I think it's $7 an issue quarterly. So not a big commitment there. And then just looking at the content and the way it's set up, and that's for the digital copy. I don't think they've gone to physical copies yet, but 50-page preview issue, and they're probably going to be doing something like that, moving forward on the size. But really well written articles, and you can tell the authors really put the time and effort into making it special. I love the layout too. There's little word searches and trivia and stuff in there as well, and just really fun overall to get a retro vibe, like when we used to read magazines. Nobody reads magazines anymore. It's all online, but this is really fun concept, and that first issue is free, so you can go check it out and hopefully support them after you read that, because it's really fun content. Anything else for you that you've seen lately?
No, we mentioned it in the preview show that Kerouac is now teamed up with Bill Ferris, and they now are starting another podcast where they delve even further into M.A.S.K. Mm-hmm. And as deep as we thought that Bill Ferris on his own could dig, they've been able to dig deeper. But invite you to check them out. I'm trying to remember what his new show is called. I should have been more prepared.
Gosh, yeah, and I've watched a couple episodes.
But it's great. Kerouac, if you aren't aware, he is the one. He's the artist who has been providing everybody that wants to be basically a M.A.S.K or V.E.N.O M character, and he's done that for Jason and I. We mentioned that the last MASKast, and they just are able to talk more about M.A.S.K, and it's awesome. And I've listened to a couple episodes myself. I just can't remember the name of it. But it's still a great podcast. So I just invite you to listen to him.
Yeah, it's all on YouTube. It's all on the Matt Tracker YouTube channel.
Right.
And I would invite people to follow Kira M.A.S.K on Instagram, because he's doing a lot more beyond just M.A.S.K now with his drawings, and they're just epic stuff. I mean, wrestling, some kind of obscure cartoons and such, just basically doing his favorites and what he's inspired to do. And it's been really fun to just see all of the stuff that he's been putting out, because it's pretty amazing how quickly he can get stuff together, and it just looks fantastic. I mean, poster worthy stuff every time. So we'll we'll plug them. They're the ones that's really keeping a consistent M.A.S.K presence up there. So make sure you are subscribed to Matt Tracker on YouTube. And I'm trying to find, it's called Talking Overtime.
That's it.
They're up to 3 episodes now. And there's a fun picture of them both in their M.A.S.K garb that he created. So Talking Overtime. Check those episodes out. It's kind of just like they jump on a podcast and let's talk about something M.A.S.K. And it's not really anything really planned out or outlined, and it makes it for a nice, fun, free-flowing conversation.
Oh yeah.
When you're listening to it. So very good stuff. And go make sure you follow Matt Tracker on YouTube. All right. Well, are you ready to get in the show here and go to South America?
I'm ready to start the MASKast. So we enter into a raging waterfall. Then we come upon a trio of people checking out the purity of the water. One gentleman looks at his clear flask and determines that the falls are not pure enough. As the camera changes, we see that the man is talking to 2 Aborigines, and then the gentleman explains that with the help of the Tracker Foundation, it'll be cleaned up in no time. We cut back to the raging falls for a little bit. Then one of the Aborigines shouts that there's magic from the gods. The gentleman exclaims that Angel Falls has stopped in midair. The 2 Aborigines fall to their knees and bow to it, while the man is awestruck, stating, "Wait until Matt hears about this." We cut next to Scott and T-Bob, who are fishing just somewhere up the river, I imagine. And with Scott complaining that they've been there all day with no bite. Suddenly, Scott jumps to his feet while shouting, "Ouch!" We see an army of fire ants with Scott exclaiming that they're biting him. It's an all-out attack. Then he yells for help. T-Bob climbs down from the fallen tree, grabbing a pail and gathering water. Scott asks what he's doing. Then T-Bob lunges the bucket of water onto Scott. He asks what Scott was doing while we cut to the anthill. Then back to the duo with Scott continuing that fire ants don't start fires. T-Bob quips that at least something was biting today.
Yeah.
Suddenly, we then turn to T-Bob as he exclaims that the river is drying up.
Yes, and then we cut to Thunderhawk and Gator at another locale, I guess nearby, with Matt and Dusty in this small structure. Matt says it won't be long before everyone can have clean drinking water, as he pours a glass, and he's got some equipment behind him, apparently some kind of filtration system. Dusty says thanks to his purifier, it will give them good health and new jobs in Venezuela. So we figure out where we are.
Yep.
In particular, the explorer Sam, which we find out is his name, runs up, and Matt says he's looking like he just saw a ghost. He says that would have been easier to believe than what he's about to tell him. And he tells him that Angel Falls has stopped flowing, and he kind of pours out Dusty's glass of water onto his hand, kind of demonstrating. Mm-hmm. Dusty doesn't believe him, and Sam says in his 10 years as an environmentalist, he's never seen anything like it. And then just then we get Scott and T-Bob running up with Scott telling Matt that the river dried up in 2 seconds. And Matt deduces that the waterfall must have caused the river to dry up. And he tells Dusty he wants to look into what put the waterfall on hold. And then we get back to the falls, and everything looks normal as Matt and Dusty and the duo are looking on from below. Excuse me. Dusty says it looks as normal as a back 40 on a summer day. And Matt thinks it might be some kind of illusion. Well, Scott rebuttals that, and that he did see it, and so did Sam. And Matt says he's going behind the scenes for a look and tells Scott and T-Bob to stay put. And we get Matt and Dusty now walking off as we hear actually the Venom theme in the background, which is interesting.
Right. And Scott suggesting that they find some good fishing bait while they wait. T-Bob jokes that they should look for some Spanish-speaking worms. Haha, the South American fish should go for them. We next see Matt and Dusty walking down, with Matt suggesting they look behind the waterfall. Dusty doesn't see anything. However, Matt suggests they look in the cave that they've discovered. A few bright sparkles flash, then we see Matt running his hands along the roof of the cavern. He notices that they're from laser burns all over the rocks. Dusty says something or someone didn't take a vacation after all. Matt replies that the water was evaporated by these lasers. Dusty thinks that they are smelling fishy water. Of course, Matt has to reply that the fish smells like venom.
Mm-hmm.
Now Dusty rebuttals that what kind of scheme are they cooking? Matt doesn't know, but he has a friend who might know, Zuwata. Now we move over to what looks like pyramids, with Matt stating that he lives in the Temple of the Parrots. Scott is astonished by the birds as they along with Matt and Dusty, walk up the path. T-Bob comments that he's glad that he doesn't have to clean their cages. Dusty jokes, imagine the cracker bill this dude must have, with Matt chuckling.
That was pretty funny, actually. I laughed at that.
So then we turn to what looks like a scenic view of the four-person team. A shot from above with two parrots looking on, and then to the team climbing up these temple steps, with one parrot looking like he wants to take a peck out of T-Bob. Zuwata states that too many sunsets have occurred since the last time they've met. Matt replies it's good to see him. Zuwata continues and asks how he might serve Matt, to which Matt replies that there is something worth a lot of money near Angel Falls. Zuwata replies that there is a legend that states that there is a statue called the Scarlet Empress, which is hidden beneath the falls for over 1,000 years, but no one has been found, or she hasn't been found. Now we cut to the team outdoors.
Right. It's a few minutes later, they are walking away from the temple. Scott says if the legend is true, the statue must be worth a lot. And T-Bob says, yeah, just think of all the bait she bought. I didn't get that joke.
I know they were talking about bait. Maybe they're trying to make a loose connection. But
yeah. And I guess maybe being under the waterfall or something. Yeah. Dusty asked Matt if he thinks the statue actually exists, and Matt says if Venom is around it, probably does. And he's worried they've already found it. They need to summon the team. So now here's where we get the call-up, the short call-up.
Very short.
Matt uses the Thunderhawk computer as they get near Thunderhawk and requests the team. Computer selects Calhoun Burns for his construction and demolition experience, and his amphibious vehicle Raven might be helpful. He is riding a horse, gets the signal on his watch, the wrong signal, as you like to say, the wrong sound effect. He kind of turns the horse around, and that's it. We cut to Dusty being pre-selected, and Matt calls for the assemble and says they'll meet Calhoun back at the camp. So just one agent this time,
Right. And there was no command like, mass computer, no satellite link, which I know that one's hit or miss, but usually he says, mass computer, select the best team. It was not even that. No scan files, no nothing. It was just select the best team.
Yeah. It was basically just a request.
Missed a few.
And it was the call up scene with him riding the horse. I was expecting him to like jump a fence or do something, but it was just real simple. There's usually something funny there. They try to
even the boy
make some humor.
The boy, there was a boy there, and he was looking on at the guy, at Calhoun. Yeah. Not even like, what happened? What I miss?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Why did he turn around? Or it was just weird. Anyway, so get background to where we are. Scott tells everyone to look up, and the waterfall is beginning to evaporate again. And Matt says he'll drop Dusty off at the camp to get Gator. And he just takes off in a Thunderhawk, leaving Scott and T-Bob behind. I was like, should they be taking them to the camp too for safety? But
that or no they didn't even instruct him like, stay there.
You're on your own, buddy. Which he doesn't care, but still, good grief. Anyway, of course, Scott wants to take a closer look, and T-Bob says he knows what he's going to ask, but the answer is no. He's not converting to motor scooter mode and driving him to the falls. Never. And Scott gives him a stern look as we cut to him riding T-Bob towards the falls.
That's it. So, T-Bob then replies, at least never around you.
Yeah.
And then Thunderhawk flies through a flock of birds and seems to examine the falls. Then Matt instructs, let's get behind this natural phenomenon. Dusty rogers him and says that one high dive, which sounded like Hyde Ridge, is what it actually sounded like. I don't know. It sounded like off. I know he said high dive, but it like he's reading a false line or bad line or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, he launches the Gator boat into the river. Inside now, we see the silhouette of Switchblade blasting lasers through the mist. Dusty responds that Matt's right. Mayhem's putting on a laser show to evaporate the watering hole. Matt states that let's see if we can get front row seats. Mayhem is now wearing his Python mask, and then he notices Mask and states that Rax is out of time. Next, we see the Piranha sub towing out a very large Scarlet Empress statue. Dusty is surprised and gets tossed away of the Gator boat by the wake, crashing into the embankment. Dusty states that the engine took a bath and it won't start. From the air, we see that the Gator boat seems to be driven closer to the falls, with Matt exclaiming to get away from the falls. Well, duh. He's trying.
He just told you he's got a busted motor, Matt.
Yeah. Well, then we see Switchblade shooting the lasers at as Mayhem ascends and flies out. Switchblade passes over top of Thunderhawk, and right here could have been a great battle scene. It could have been a missile launch, but no, it's just the graphics, and that's it. So anyway, however, Matt is still trying to contact Dusty. Dusty is still trying to navigate. Perhaps, maybe he's trying to start the engine. We don't really hear sound effects at that moment, as we see the rush of the water fall towards Dusty. And now we get our dramatic commercial break. What are you thinking so far? What's your opinion now?
Well, just going back to the end scene there was some pretty cool shots, like of Thunderhawk hovering above Gator as we see Gator is getting close to the waterfall. But I don't know, I just didn't sit well with me because he was over near the bank and the Gator boat is stalled and it was pushed to the bank because of the wake of Piranha passing by with that huge statue. Right. So how is he getting pushed towards the waterfall when there's less water initially coming down from it? And it was kind of weird to me too that all of the water that was essentially bearing down on him was only about like a third of the falls shown
Right.
that was held up by these lasers or evaporated by the lasers. So I don't know. I just didn't buy into it. I did like that. I think this was the first time I noticed like a freeze frame right before the break. Like,
Yeah.
As Dusty's fumbling, they do show him fumbling with the key to start it. He doesn't get any dialogue there. It's more just like frustrated moaning.
Right.
Start, you sucker.
Yep.
But it was just I don't know. It was weird that they, as the water's coming down, then it's a freeze frame, and then we cut like fade to black. And I had never seen them do a freeze frame like that before, so that was kind of cool. But it was decent drama there at the break. But why wouldn't Dusty just hop onto the land when he was near the bank and just abandon the boat? That's what came to my mind. And like I said, the water flow wasn't even half blocked there, so it was. It could have been. It would have been nice if like the whole waterfall was blocked like it was before, and everything's starting to dry up. Why don't you do that? And then the full rush of the falls is heading towards Dusty. That would have been a lot better. But, the effect of the water evaporating didn't work for me either. No. It was like flashes of a rainbow or something, which is kind of cool when you think about a waterfall. You usually get like a rainbow if it's a sunny day or something. But I don't know, the lasers up against the water, it just didn't connect from what they drew. The story was okay. I mean, it definitely set up a reason for Matt to be there, with the water filtration thing. And I think Scott and T-Bob would use well to build up the drama of the story while they're fishing, and that whole thing happens to them. So they weren't there necessarily yet in a bad way, but I was like, what is Venom going to do with this big statue? And how is that little sub able to pull it so fast?
Right.
And create that big of a wake? That seemed a little ridiculous to me. And I don't know. It seemed to drag a little bit to me as well. Like, what was all revealed could have been done in like half the time. It could have been done in like half of that first half of the episode.
Right.
Just not enough action, and they could have. I mean, there was the shots were great. I thought the animation for the setup shots of the waterfalls and up overhead and the receding of the river, I thought was a lot better than what they've done before with some of those kind of effects. But we get that same shot again of the waterfall later in the episode, and it seemed like a lot of recycled or just lead up shots in that first half to get to the story moving along, and they weren't really pushing a lot of action and short scenes,
Right.
Anyway, I'm just really not feeling this one, so I'm right in the middle at a 3. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not bad, but I just wasn't engaged with it, so I dropped it down a couple points just to put my MASKometer right in the middle.
Well, for me, I really love the animation. They did very well with all the animation. The only one I didn't like was the shot where they're exiting the temple. They're supposed to be doing that distant shot as they're walking down, and all I see is what looks like stick figures walking down. Yeah. And granted, I know what it is, but still was terrible in my mind. There's a little bit too much fluff, is what I called it, with the multiple angles. As Matt, Dusty, and the duo are walking into the temple, you got the bird scene, right? And what was that about?
Yeah, it's just it seemed like a lot of filler. Like they didn't have a long enough story or something. They had to
and then that anthill, I realize we'll see the connection later, but the anthill, for them taking that 1 second to look at it on the camera, just didn't mix well, except that we know that Scott got bit by fireheads. But why did you take a picture of that firehill or the anthill? That it didn't connect. But the plot was pretty decent. There were some stretches, like Piranha Boat, or Sub pulling that freaking massive of a statue. One, how's it even floating?
Yeah.
So
little barge, whatever.
right when I saw that, so I'm thinking, oh, I can sort of buy that it's pulling it. I don't think I could buy that it makes that wake, but I'm trying to realize that it's a cartoon too, so I'll take it for what it is. I I did see the gator boat slamming into the embankment, and yes, I would have just bailed out and been done with it. But you got to have drama, so I kind of saw that. Okay, I see that. Okay, the engine stalled. Okay, what are you gonna do, Dusty? And but what I didn't like, this lost treasure has been a lost for 1,000 years. How does Venom just magically find it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
how do you figure it out?
just a matter of stopping the waterfall so they can get behind it and find it. I mean, they're able, Matt and Dusty are able to get right behind the waterfall there, so there had to have been some way down to it, and it's just
Right.
if it's just sitting there, I don't know. That should have been explained a little bit more. I agree.
I agree. Yep. The duo were okay. They weren't being annoying, but they were working their way to be annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we already identified that the alarm was crap. It wasn't the right sound. They missed a call up. The at least a decent call up. Not even I get the satellite link, which is always nice to have. That's what they could have done. Instead of putting the fluff in there, they could have put the real command in there and made up the difference. They could have had a decent battle scene, and they didn't take advantage of it. I mean, they could have had a good all-out brawl with Switchblade flying over top. But
yeah, I thought about that too. I mean, it could have been enough just for Mayhem or to get Matt distracted in Thunderhawk to not be able to help Dusty as he's being sucked towards the falls or something. That would have been enough to help build that drama a little bit more than them just kind of passing and Mayhem assuming, oh, well, he's going to go after Dusty because he's down here helpless.
Right. And then the last thing, you already identified it, which was the waterfall that was disappearing. I actually did not notice it, and I rewound it a couple of times. I didn't really see what they were trying to emphasize, even with the rainbows. When in the first scene, when they're noticing that the waterfall is gone.
Mm-hmm.
When they're later, I finally made the connection, but I'm like, they did not do this well. That the waterfall shut down because what looks like there's still a waterfall there.
Yeah.
So I didn't. Like I said, and I'm 44 and I'm trying to figure this out. And that's pretty bad. I did not see that it was disappeared.
Yeah, well, it would have been totally bone dry or something, to make the river dry up as fast as it did.
Exactly.
So why? I don't understand why that didn't happen at the second time, and why it was just a partial piece of the waterfall.
Right. So, all in all, I landed like you. I'm right in the middle. I was trying to be optimistic, and it didn't work out that well.
Yeah, it was just kind of right in the middle. It's not bad, not good at this point. But all right, so back into the show after the break, we get Dusty basically just staring back at the waterfall again. I'm like, fire backlash or something, dude.
Exactly.
I don't know what exactly backlash does. I thought it was maybe the audio waves or something, but if it had any kind of force to it, like we've seen it knock over people and vehicles and stuff, fire it against a rock or something and try to push yourself back from the falls. Or
exactly.
I mean, he's not helpless. Just start firing. Shoot that huge water gun that you've got on that thing that shoots streams of water, ricochet off something. Anyway.
Yeah.
The trick here is cool, though. I did like this. So Matt opens the bomb bay door on Thunderhawk, and from underneath we see this big suction cup on a wire, essentially. Mm-hmm. It sticks to the back of Gator, and Matt flies back away from the waterfall and tows Dusty to safety beyond the rush of this big wave after the waterfall opened up again. I mean, it was a fun trick, but I just wish that wave was set up a lot better, and that would have been a bigger payoff. But Anyway, Dusty breathes a sigh of relief, saying those were the biggest raindrops that ever fell on his head, or almost fell on his head. And Matt says it looks like they have lost Venom and the Scarlet Empress, thanks to Dusty's stalled motor. But we get back to Scott and T-Bob, who are now just pulling up to the falls, and Scott is angry they missed all the action, of course. And the falls are essentially back to normal now. T-Bob wants to get back to the temple before they get into any trouble. Well, that just never happens, does it? They never get back to avoid the trouble. So anyway, they turn around now and they see two trails. And Scott asks T-Bob, which one did they take? Well, T-Bob starts playing Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. Right. And Scott says they will never get to the temple that way. So T-Bob asks if there's any better way, as this aardvark comes up and greets him. And Scott assures T-Bob it's the animal is okay, and says that he could have used him earlier when he got bit by all those ants. T-Bob doesn't want to be around when the aardvark sneezes with a nose like that. Haha. Scott says they should follow him to get back to the river where they were fishing, and then they could find their way to the temple from there. I thought that was a pretty decent idea. Yep. If you're not sure where you're going to go and know a point where you could have been before and could actually get back to the temple, that would have been good. But we see that doesn't necessarily work out that way. But now we finally are taking down the river to Venom's camp.
Right, and it's a kind of a serene view with the river that pans left, and then it zooms in on Mayhem barking at Nash to hurry it up. He knows grandmothers that work faster than him.
That's exactly what I said. Mayhem barking orders.
Yep. Nash replies, anything you say. Of course, Mayhem keeps instructing that he better cover the frame so no one spots the Scarlet Empress when he floats her down the river, or he'll make a river rat out of him. Nash comments that the frames are heavy. Then Mayhem suggests he use his mask. Well, that's a clever idea. You know, he got the mask to do it. Why don't you use it?
Mr. Quick Wit. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nash comments that why did he think of that before? Okay. So Mayhem replies, because you don't have all the eggs in your frying pan. So Nash walks over to Outlaw, opens the door, and grabs his Samson mask, closes the door. It's kind of funny.
Powerhouse.
That's what I thought it was Powerhouse, but I thought he said Samson.
It was Samson. I think they interchange them. Like they didn't know from episode to episode or remember what they called the thing. So one time, and I like the Samson name. I don't think that's bad by any means, but when you're used to him saying Powerhouse, it's weird. You're like, who's Samson?
Right. Just like Hurricane and what was the name before that?
Night Stalker.
Night Stalker, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my little tidbit about this. You get a little added stuff here. This is the fluff, where he goes over to Outlaw. He opens the door, grabs the mask, closes the door. Okay, we know that's where he's going to go. But anyway, so he puts on the mask and, says Samson on. Then he's able to pick up the frame right over his head. Now we cut back to M.A.S.K, who's along the riverbank. Then we see the M.A.S.K transport plane launch Raven, and it transforms, which is an awesome transformation.
Yes.
Like a subboat mode.
Mm-hmm. First
diving into the water. Then it resurfaces as the transport plane flies off into the distance. They then all take off following the river, as Matt exclaims that since there are no roads, man will be probably floating the Empress down the river. Calhoun asks, how about flying her out? Matt replies that the statue must weigh tons. Of course, Dusty adds that to just keep searching with Spectrum, since the big gumdrop shouldn't be hard to find.
Okay, let me stop you for a second, because that makes sense now. I couldn't understand what Calhoun said there.
Yeah.
So he's suggesting that them to fly the.
Why does he just fly it out? Because he does have Switchblade, yes.
And that's what kind of came to mind later, that I kind of marked episode down for. I'm like, just use Switchblade to fly the thing out of there. But I'm glad that they addressed that at some point. I just didn't catch what he said right there. Okay.
And I kind of liked that when Thunderhawk took off, it was like an instantaneous, he's up in the air. And I know we've seen that before when he had that big, huge crate he was on. There's no running start, you know?
Yeah, just hit the jet engines and hold on.
I was hoping for a Dukes of Hazzard scene myself, but it didn't happen. Anyway, so we're back to our duo who are following our anteater.
Right. And T-Bob thinks they might be more lost now than they were before. Scott even says Lewis and Clark would have trouble finding their way out of this. They stop as the anteater seems to have found something behind the bushes, and they look and see Venom nearby with the statue. Mayhem says they need to hurry before the masked fools come snooping around. He also complains to Rax now that it took him too long, and Rax says he was conserving fuel. Well, Mayhem tells him he's 3 quarts low in the brain and that they'll be able to buy an oil field when they sell the Ruby Lady. Gory says selling the statue to a jewel mogul was a good idea, of course. And Scott and T-Bob kind of overhear everything now, and Scott says they have to do something to stop them, of course. T-Bob says, sorry, he didn't bring his Superman outfit with him. I thought that was funny. Scott looks back at the aardvark and says they may not need Superman, that some little old ants may do the trick. And he tells T-Bob just to go over and knock the tops off the nearby mounds. And T-Bob says, but they bite like a pack of wolves. And Scott says, they won't bite him because he's made of metal. Duh. Right. And tells them to go on. So T-Bob walks over and knocks over the first one, and the ants start crawling up him. And the aardvark starts to lick T-Bob, and Scott gets a chuckle about that from a nearby treetop. And we head back to Venom now, and Mayhem is still complaining to Gory that the tarp better fit like a glove over the statue. Gory tells him it will, and that he always does a good job for him. Mr. Mayhem, as he calls him. The ants approach now, and Rax, of course, is the first one to start getting bit. Now, this is a funny joke. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple jokes in here that would have went over kids' heads even back in the 80s, but Mayhem tells him to knock it off, that the jitterbug went out in the 20s.
Yep.
Rax cries for help because he has ants in his pants. Gory gets a chuckle out of this and says he'd do any antics to get attention. That was a roll my eyes joke. Yep. And here come the puns. They crawl up Gory now, and he starts getting bit. Mayhem tells them that they have the jewel of the century, and all they want to do is join an army of ants. And they start crawling on him now and start biting. And now all 3 of them are bouncing around and yelling, ouch. And Scott and T-Bob are getting a good laugh from the bushes nearby. And Scott says they seem to be acting antisocial. Oh, my eyes. And now we see Mayhem notices Thunderhawk from above. And we cut to on board Thunderhawk. Matt says he's got a match on the statue that I think it was Dusty told him to use Spectrum to scan for.
Right.
Which he never actually does. But Matt says the roundup is over. They should find the Empress about a quarter mile ahead. Well, Venom now enters their vehicles. Excuse me. Scott tells T-Bob to give him a high five for stalling Venom long enough for M.A.S.K to arrive. Well, when T-Bob slaps Scott's hand, he yells, ow, and asks him why he has to be so heavy-handed.
Yeah, exactly.
Switchblade takes off, converts to jet mode, and as Mayhem approaches Thunderhawk, he says he's been stung already, and now it's their turn. And now we're going to get some battle here. Fires 2 missiles at Thunderhawk, which does like a barrel roll to dodge. It was a cool trick, but the animation was just a little off with it or something.
Yeah.
Kind of choppy. It worked. You knew what he was doing, but it could have been a little bit better there. Matt says when he played basketball in school, he was pretty good for a rebound. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And little insight into Matt's history there. He was a basketball player. Fires his door. This is what encouraged me to go out and find the Globetrotters cartoon. Anyway, the Thunderhawk's door lasers fire back at Switchblade, which, okay, so again, they appeared to miss to me,
That's
or at
what
least
I saw.
Didn't show any damage or anything. But I guess it was enough to scare off Switchblade for a little bit into the distance there. And Matt says 1 down. I was like, well, he didn't go down. In the river below, now we get Gator getting zapped from laser fire from the Piranha sub underwater, which kind of zaps Dusty's controls. And again, how's he running the Gator boat? We didn't see how they fixed it. Anyway, apparently the controls were not zapped enough that he was able to launch the depth charge from the back of the boat, and it floats down. It kind of blows up underwater. It looks like it almost blew up the Gator boat from the angle, but you see this spray, huge water spray behind the Gator boat now above water, and we see the Piranha sub flying in the air. It hits the ground, and Rax kind of tumbles out, and of course begins to get bit again. The ants begin to bite him again, and then he just runs back into the jungle. And now we're actually over to Outlaw, who's just kind of sitting there by the statue.
That's right. And right as we see Outlaw, we next see Raven atop the water floating towards them. Nash quickly runs out of Outlaw and states that here's a pitch you don't see in the majors. He commands Samson on and throws a large boulder at Raven. Calhoun states, Gulliver on. Then we see the boulder land on Raven, ejecting Calhoun out of Raven. But the Gulliver blast, although late, seems to still be launched and hits the Empress, shrinking her. Nash now says, oh no, and climbs into Outlaw. With the duo noticing that the Empress has been shrunk, T-Bob quips that she'll have to live in a dollhouse. The Gator boat arrives with lasers blasting surrounding him, but doesn't actually hit him. So they're terrible shooters, whoever it is. I couldn't figure out who it was that shooting.
It was Outlaw shooting.
Was it Outlaw?
At him. Yeah, since he was back inside.
Oh, that's right. Dusty presses a button that shoots lasers, except they seem to launch waves of water at Nash, engulfing him and making him fall out of Outlaw, which is a terrible scene to me.
Well, we've seen that. It's like he that water cannon is able to gather water from the river or whatever body he's floating on, and have this like extreme blast that's able to even break the windshield there.
Right, and that's exactly what it does. But I don't know. I didn't spot the broken windshield. I didn't spot it very well with the wave scene. So anyway, Nash climbs out, runs off as the duo run up to the raft. A parrot now has the Empress in its beak. Scott now advises T-Bob that they can't make any sudden moves, which would scare it away. We cut to another, like an overlook scene with Thunderhawk flying overhead, which seems to trigger the parrot to fly away. We get the military theme pumping up with Miles and Switchblade flying. Miles states that the statue is gone thanks to M.A.S.K. Next time, he'll send him up the river. And then we cut back to M.A.S.K. as Matt and Dusty are shaking Raven to try to awake Calhoun. It didn't make sense. I thought he was hanging out of it, like almost falling into the river.
Well, the doors, how the doors open up like this on Raven, and that's what I was. Well, when he shot it too, he was still inside when he shot the Gulliver mask. And I was like, he's going to shoot that right into the windshield. But when the boulder hit, he kind of gets pushed out and he kind of slumps over onto the door, is what I got. And so now he was just kind of knocked out or whatever, and they're trying to wake him up by shaking the
I got
freaking
that,
boat.
but I got the disconnect. Like he was in the middle of the river, kind of like the Dusty scene, except in reverse. Now
he's over at the bank.
He's in the middle of the river, and now he's on the embankment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they're shaking Raven to wake him up. He finally comes to, asking what happened with Matt, saying that he struck out today. Scott runs up to tell Matt that a parrot flew off with the Empress in its beak. T-Bob asks how they'll find it now. Well, Matt replies that they may not find it. It looks like it's lost again. Now Calhoun advises that the shrink ray will wear off. There's no telling where the parrot will be when it happens. Matt adds that the Scarlet Empress might be meant to remain a legend. Well, now next we see the Anteater return to lick T-Bob, with him stating that it must be thanking him for finding his lunch. Scott quips that he ate it so fast that he might be looking for an antacid. We hear the big laugh, and as we fade to black.
Antacid, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I did want to point out the joke or the line about when Calhoun says, "What happened?" and Matt tells him that he struck out today. I thought was a great callback because, and Matt wouldn't have known because he was up flying, wasn't near the scene. But when Gory says, "Here's a pitch that you won't see in the majors," and that he struck out, I mean, using the baseball terms there, I thought that was good.
Yeah.
But that was all that was good about that final scene, and we'll get into it. But let's get into our PSA here. Scott and T-Bob, and this didn't tie in, at least I couldn't figure out a way that it tied into the episode. Scott and T-Bob are walking in town and see a rundown house. T-Bob tells him that he bets that ghosts are living inside the house. Scott tells him there's no such thing as ghosts, and it's just a vacant house. Well, they see something moving around inside, kind of a shadowy thing first, and they get scared, and then we see a rat hop out of the window. And T-Bob says he thought there was no such thing, with Scott saying there isn't except for the four-legged furry kind. And they laugh and we fade out. How is that a safety tip?
I did not see anything about a safety tip in there.
We'll get to it, but there's so much more you could have done there as well. Yep. But we are going to let you go first, sir, and you can tell us where you landed with your rating on this episode.
Well, the PSA sucked. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
The animation was decent. I'll give them that. The animation was pretty good. The story was, I'll call it good, working on okay. But then we get the part where Mayhem could have blasted Matt, like I said, out of the sky. They never used it. The narrowly escaping the waterfall scene was, I'll call it okay. I mean, I tried to give it the suspense that they were trying to go for. Mm-hmm. But again, that could have been, like we've identified, could have been more dramatic. It could have been the combination of the battle with Matt trying to rescue while trying to save his own skin. There could have been something done there. The ants were a clever trick for the duo, but the battle scene towards the end began to be like lackluster. It wasn't. They could have done so much more with the battles. Mm-hmm. And I know we keep that seems almost like a rerun of our own anymore.
Yeah, I'm just happy we got a battle. Put it that way with this episode.
The laser sighting was actually a great animation to see Thunderhawk sighting in the lasers and all that. But like we identified, it looked like he missed Switchblade altogether. But he said that we got him. I don't see how, but okay, Matt, you're the winner here, I guess. And that's what I took it as. But again, it was just, there was no connect for that. I already identified that Calhoun hanging out of the door on Raven, but then, that was in the middle of the river. Now they're on the embankment and shaking him out. I mean, why don't they just run up to the guy and shake him? Why didn't they do that instead of just shaking the entire car?
Right, yeah. Have Dusty on the boat go up beside him and like shake him or something.
Heck, do the sonic boom. That'll wake him up. But yeah, whatever. Then um, the shrinking ray from the Gulliver, that was actually cool, but to me it seemed like there was a delay for it to enact. I marked it down as it seemed like a little delay for me. We already identified the wave of the water on Nash. It was difficult for me to see that they actually broke the windshield. But I love the running gag that they tend to flip racks off the bike, or now the Piranha sub. So I love that. Like I said, the animation, the plot was good, but the rest was I'll call it subpar to me. So I locked in on a 2. How about you?
All right, yeah, I was right there with you, man, with the rating. Well, there's something that knocked me down a little bit more. We'll get to it. Jokes were up and down for me. I thought there was some pretty fun humor. The writers were trying, we'll say, to write some actual humor, and some of the jokes, like I said, they even went over probably 80s kids' heads with the jitterbug in the 20s and things like that. I thought that was good writing, but just towards the end of the episode, it was pun after pun after pun. The stuff that just makes me roll my eyes. So that kind of ended on a downer. I did enjoy the Raven conversion, and also Switchblade at some points. I couldn't remember if that was new animation, if we had seen that before, but it definitely was not often used. So it was nice to see the conversion, and I like that little trick out of the transport plane. Usually it's crazy, when Bruce does that. He did that trick out of the plane and with Firefly and nearly got himself killed. But for thinking like, okay, so we just called one agent, right? Who is flying the transport plane?
Exactly.
Well, maybe it's on automatic pilot or something, and he just, takes off in Raven for the plane to fly back, and maybe it's some kind of sentient plane or something. Who knows? Yeah. But I thought it was cool that, okay, so it's not him flying the plane and having to land it, then having to pull Raven out. Then we wonder how the transport plane gets back, or if it just sits around until the mission's over, which would have been fine too. But how are they going to get back now without the transport plane there? Anyway, right. I didn't try to get too lost in that, but I did like that trick. Like you mentioned, the retreat from Switchblade initially there just made no sense. Matt's laser should have taken out a wing or something to make him back off a little bit, to flee a little bit. Yeah, I mean, anything at that point, just to tell him, oh, that's one down. Well, no, it's not. Come on. We talked about they didn't fix Dusty's boat, and it was incapacitated. So how did it get fixed and, back on the scene? But whatever. We got a little bit of mask use. These are the things that kind of kept me from pushing it way down. Was we did at least get a battle scene. We got Samson twice and Gulliver once, but there were still missed opportunities for more mask use with Spectrum scanning for the statue. They even showed it on the Thunderhawk computer when he finally found the thing. It was on the computer. It wasn't anything that he was scanning through Spectrum. I don't know. I don't know if we were determined that those two are linked, the computer and Spectrum, but we're always kind of looking through Spectrum when he's scanning stuff. You know what I mean? Right. And then, just with Dusty could have used Backlash to try to get himself out of the situation or something. So there were some missed opportunities there. We didn't get anything from, like I said, Matt or Mayhem or whatever with their masks. I was ready to keep it at a 3. I was ready to drop it down another half to 2.5 and push it to 3 until the PSA came along. Yep. That was the worst one that we've seen, in my opinion. Just there's no safety tip there. It's like, oh, ghosts don't exist. Okay. That's not what PSAs do. They should have been like, "Hey, let's go in this vacant house and hide or something." Well, no, you can't do that, Scott, because you don't know how the structure is. It could be old and fall on your head. Or, hey, let's pick up these rocks and start busting out windows or something. There's could have been lots of things that you could have did with that vacant house to make it an actual like safety tip or something worthwhile for putting it in there. It just was stupid, man. So stupid. And the ending killed me too. I mean, they had a really good setup there. Not just, oh, the statue is gone. And I loved, we look at the plots on Wikipedia, whoever writes those plots. Right. And half the time they're just, I don't know, way off or not really centered around what the episode is. And the plot for what we used on the last episode was Calhoun Burns shrinks the Scarlet Empress and it's up to M.A.S.K to get it back or something. I was like, that was the worst plot point ever because it was only at the very end of the episode. It made it sound like, oh, okay, so this happens at the beginning. I was ready for Mayhem to steal the thing. Calhoun shrinks it, and now they're spending the whole episode trying to track down the bird before V.E.N.O.M does. That might have been a better episode than the one we got, but that definitely had nothing to do with the plot. Because at the end, Matt's like, oh, well, it'll turn up somewhere. The shrink ray wears off. I was like, it was so easy. Okay, so the temple was the temple of the parrots. You know where the freaking parrots are going. They're going to the temple. Okay, so the thing takes it back to the temple. It reemerges from its shrinkage. Well, it was a big enough temple, I think, that they could have pulled that off, like where the dude was sitting on his little throne there. It comes back there, boom, it's back up and it's in the temple. I mean, how perfect would that have been versus, oh, well, it'll turn up. It was so stupid. I did not get that ending at all. It was just so abrupt, like, all right, we're out of here. Oh, sorry, we didn't have a chance to, all that setup, like you said, all that setup could have been just wiped out. They could have tightened it up a little bit, and you could have done a real ending.
Oh yeah.
It's just wow. So I was like, I can't put it down. I can't put down a level with like Stone Trees and Panda Power because there were still some good things in here. We got some mask use. We had a battle. We had some awesome conversion scenes, and there's stuff in here that's worthy of watching. So I couldn't take it any farther down, but it's nice to see that you're on my level for once going through this. But the only tick I had was what you kind of cleared up there about why didn't Mayhem airlift the statue out of there, and they kind of told us it was too heavy, weighed tons or whatever to get to be air vac'd out of there or whatever. But anything from the script you pulled in? I didn't see anything. Yeah. So the poll, we talked about this, I think, before we went on air, is our poller, who is it? Opinion Stage, I think. They have a limit now on how many people, not how many people can vote, but how many people can actually just view our poll with their free account. So it kind of lacks or kind of limits how many people can vote in the poll as they come by. But we did get 7 votes that I counted before it got shut down or closed out. 3 people voted for. We had 2 3s, 1 2, and 1 1.
You can add a 2 to mine because I couldn't add it.
Yeah. So there was 2 2s there. Still had more 3s and 4s. So it was probably just above the middle there on average. And I didn't pull up the comments. Are you at the comments?
I am. We have 4, one of which is Anna. The most interesting part about this episode is seeing the vulnerability of M.A.S.K. They get knocked out by Venom on at least 2 occasions. In addition to being more or less responsible for that, the statue gets shrunk and then vanishes. It was even Thunderhawk that scared the bird, so it flew away with the statue. It's interesting to see that the heroes aren't always portrayed as perfect, but that they also can have flaws or even just be unfortunate. And it made a nice change here. Very true, Anna. They aren't perfect. Matt tries to be, but he even gets a few wrong.
Yeah. And we've said that before. Even with the vehicles, we like to see the vulnerability of the vehicles, that M.A.S.K isn't all perfect, all can't be touched by Venom.
Right.
So taking it a step beyond that and kind of being outsmarted almost when they just waltz right out of the waterfall with the statue, it does make it more believable, with the episode. And next up, as I'm waiting for my page to load, you can do it. We have Rene DeClure. He says, this episode seems to be, excuse me, this episode seems to me to have been written on autopilot. I agree with that. Yep. Matt and Dusty stumble onto the plot, and Calhoun really blew it during the final fight. He was even defeated by the goon Gory. Once again, Venom scores another legendary find, but M.A.S.K makes sure they don't get to keep it. Tracker Foundation is mentioned for the second time. Gator makes its final appearance, and so does Dusty's pink shirt. That kid watching Calhoun ride his horse during the agent selection was just Scott's animation model with different colors. I didn't notice that. That's a good eye.
I didn't notice it either.
The dialogue has, he continues, the dialogue has way too many unrelated references to things like raindrops keep falling on my head, the Lewis and Clark expedition, and the jitterbug. Mm-hmm. The PSA was not really much of a lesson, and the animation wasn't the best either. Calhoun loses one of his arms during his last scene. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I missed that too.
I give this one a 2, my lowest rating yet. So maybe my 2 didn't even go through on this. Maybe we should add 2 2s on that.
Well, I think I might want to add a third one because I'm reading here from Decker. I marked this episode at a 2.
Okay, well,
there you go.
Maybe somebody changed from the 2 to a 1 or something, but maybe. Go ahead with Decker's comment.
It felt like it had a decent premise, but poor execution. I am not sure Venom's plan ever made sense, but I did enjoy Mayhem piloting Switchblade in his outlaw costume. The fight was below average, and the bird animation around the temple was pretty bad. A below average episode all around. Then we have our final comment from Chopin Simon.
Yeah, it's just what Decker says here. I don't know. I don't like the outlaw costume in Switchblade. It just throws off for me.
It does throw it off because it should be, like we see Matt when he's riding Rhino. He has the Ultra Flash on. You would think the same with Miles, but you don't even get it to see what it even does.
Yeah.
He never uses it.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever used it during this whole time. And I understand if you've got outlaw on scene, and typically, because this has happened before, where he's got his outlaw get up on and he's flying Switchblade. He never rides in the thing, so you don't get that correlation either. You might as well just put him in his regular get up if he's going to be flying Switchblade the entire episode.
I think he did ride an outlaw here. The last maybe 2 episodes ago?
That's right. Yeah, they picked him up and dropped him off somewhere. It was
That's exactly all it was. But
yeah, at the end of the scene, end of the episode. But anyway, yes. Okay, so Mr. Simon here. I gave this episode 3 points. It was not a bad episode, but the animation was average, and the discovery of the Scarlet Empress was not shown. Yeah, where was it, and how did they get it out?
Right.
The statue in Piranha suddenly popped out of the waterfall. The fight scene was okay, but not one of the best. I liked the resolution of the story, which was unexpected. Yeah, I didn't. There was no resolution to me with taking off, and it'll turn up somewhere. So
Right.
turn on your Spectrum mask there, Matt, and just scan, and we'll find it every once in a while. Anyone at some point here, you know.
Right.
Anyway, so appreciate the comments as always, guys. Thanks so much for adding to these podcasts. And next up will be the final episode in our season 6 of MASKast, episode 60, which is called the Venice Menace. And I'll just preface this. This is the plot right from Wikipedia. I actually changed it when we started the show here, just because I was like, it's not about the thing shrinking. That's just a little piece of the story here. Anyway, Venice Menace is Venom has a device that turns the waters around Venice to jelly, allowing Stinger to drive on the surface and dig up Cleopatra's sunken barge. So we're going after another big artifact here, an actual ship this time. You know,
yeah.
If it's turned to jelly, why? I guess maybe because Stinger has the tank tracks.
I guess.
I don't know. We'll find out. Yeah. But like I said, that's going to be the last one for our season 6. And then in MASKast 77, we will do our 10 episode review of 51 to 60 and kind of compare those 10 episodes to the overall series so far. I still got those stats archived, and it's always a fun episode to go back and just see how this section of the animated series did. So that'll be coming up, but I think that's going to do it for episode 75.
Yeah, I want to thank you all, MASKast agents, for joining us for our episode 74. Please continue to follow us at agentsofmask.com or one of our social media sites, usually as AOM. Until next time, join us again on the next episode of MASKast. And we want to thank you all for the post game, as we call it, for holding tight with us. Hopefully you find this intriguing, even if our ratings weren't all that great.
Yeah, it's all in good fun. Not all episodes can be a 5, in my opinion, but like I said, there's only been a couple in this whole series that I would say just throw away and burn the prints.
Right.
Don't ever watch, but there's usually some stuff in each episode that makes it worth watching, and we try to entertain with our ratings, and it's going to be interesting what we're going to do after we finish the series. We'll have to start another cartoon show reviewing or something. We'll have to figure that out, but I'm excited to get this part done and actually get to the racing episodes and see what they're like, and see if they're as bad as everybody has always harped on them. So we'll find out.
That's it.
All right.
Again, thank you for
quits.
That's it. Thank you again, and we will catch up to you on the next MASKast.